George Clooney as Batman, Chris O'Donnell as Robin. The movie might be reviled, but just how dynamic is this duo of action figures? Stick around and chill. Welcome to 5 Points of Articulation, where I review action figures and then articulate 5 points to help you decide if you want to add that figure to your collection. The 5 points I discuss are packaging, presentation, posability, playability, and price. I'm Jason, and if you enjoy my content, please like, share, subscribe, do all the YouTube rigmarole. Today, we're taking a look at Batman and Robin from the DC Multiverse Batman and Robin Mr. Freeze Build-A-Wave. Starting off with the packaging, and I have to hand it to McFarlane Toys, they really stepped up their game on these. I mean, yeah, for the most part, they're just typical extra-wide build-a-boxes, typical name and logo, typical collect-to-build, but then you notice that corner. These wrap around to full-color sides. This includes the Batman and Robin logo, though if I were to nitpick, in a case like this, I don't really know if you need the movie title underneath the character name. Even so, I really appreciate the effort. They also spot varnish the logo, which adds a pretty cool effect. Really gives me hope for an all-green Batman forever. The back of the box spotlights Mr. Freeze as the Build-A-Figure, and honestly, I love that they just used the headshots from the movie poster. Having looked at so many DC Multiverse boxes at this point, I really appreciate the change of pace. So for packaging, I'm giving Batman and Robin 1.5 points. Moving on to presentation, and the dynamic duo stand at about 7 inches. Strictly speaking, I've already talked about Clooney in my Batman movie 6-pack video, so I'm going to be focusing a bit more on Robin, though I'd be remiss if I didn't bring out the box set version for comparison. For some reason, the single-carded version's ears are a bit more pointed inward, but I think that's just more to do with packing and that some heat would fix it. Sculpting-wise, the only difference is the cape. The box set version has a cloth goods one, whereas this one has a sculpted one. Obviously, the soft goods takes up less real estate and hangs more naturally, but it's also a different color and texture than the rest of the figure. The sculpted one is bigger, but at least it matches. In that regard, I think I'm going to have to go with sculpted this time. Though I do guess you have to deal with this crease from the bubble. Fortunately, it's very thin and light. Otherwise, the resemblance to George Clooney is uncanny, and no matter how you feel about his performance, he has the best jaw of any Batman actor, and that's a hill I am willing to die on. Also, in spite of however you feel about it, McFarlane's done an impeccable job of translating this costume into action figure form. Truth be told, I never liked the fact that the logo didn't have yellow, but I like the three-dimensionality of it. In that regard, I've always really liked the Robin suit. Between the cape and the red logo, it's a wonderful transition from Robin to Nightwing, and I will say that this cape is just as nicely sculpted, but also a bit more subdued. Also similar to Nightwing, he has the color going down the arm, but also still has the fins on the gloves. One thing I never noticed until now is that Batman and Robin each have their own unique boot tops, and just like Clooney, the likeness to Chris O'Donnell is really good. You can definitely see how the mask was the basis for the Gotham Knights design, and how this movie was the basis for the red and black version of Nightwing in the comics. In fact, the comic also gave him the fins. Long story short, we can talk all the livelong day about how this is the worst Batman movie ever made, but in its way, it's very influential, and McFarlane went way harder than they needed to. For presentation, Batman and Robin get 1 whole point. Moving on to posability, and if you saw my 6-pack review, you'd know I was very impressed with the articulation on this Batman. The question is, will I be as impressed with Robin? They can look up this high despite the fact that Clooney shouldn't be able to move his head at all. This far down with Clooney hanging his head in shame. Seriously, dude, stop apologizing for this movie. Here we have Robin looking sideways at Bruce for ogling Poison Ivy when he knows he has a perfectly good Elle Macpherson at home, and then side to side. Moving on down, they can raise their arms 90 degrees. We got the wibbly wobbly rotator cuff, and kudos to McFarlane for actually making them red. Of course, both figures have bicep swivel, double jointed elbows with very deep bends, and McFarlane wrist balls that can swivel, and depending on the direction you point them, hinge either up and down, or side to side. Moving to the middle, and Batman and Robin have diaphragm joints and dumbbell waists. They can arch back this far, which is absolutely fantastic. Get it? 'Cause abs. And they can hunch forward this far, which is some of the best I have ever seen out of a DC Multiverse. Whatever you did here, guys, keep up the good work. They also get a great amount of tilt, and of course twist. Below the utility belts in Batman and Robin have McFarlane-style hips. They can kick over 90 degrees, and do perfect splits. They do not, unfortunately, have any kind of meaningful twist in the hip. They do, however, have really good double-jointed knees, toe articulation, and McFarlane ankles that can swivel, hinge, and like the tone of these movies from Tim Burton to Schumacher, pivot. Just as I had hoped, Robin is every bit as bendable as Batman. For posability, I'm giving Batman and Robin 1 whole point. Moving on to playability, and I have to admit, I'm a little bit conflicted. First things first, and just to get this out of the way, of course they come with trading cards. Again, these are just sections of the movie poster. In this case, it makes me even more bummed out that the Build-A-Figure never gets one. One thing that really surprises me is that both figures have the exact same write-up. It's pretty much just a synopsis of the movie. Of course, they come with Build-A-Pieces for Mr. Freeze, but I'll be talking about him in his own video. If you saw my 6-pack review, you'd know I was hoping that there was going to be some open hands and some weapons with this version. Instead, both characters have fists, so no handheld accessories. Instead of weapons, they have ice effects. These ones recreate when Freeze freezes Batman's hands to the side of his rocket, and these ones reference Robin being frozen after Batman told him not to jump into battle. As much as I would have loved to have had weapons, this is a really cool idea. They're fun, scene-specific options, and they double as accessories for both Batman and Robin and Mr. Freeze himself. Not only that, but you can also use them on your comic figures. But playability is more than cool ice effects. It's also about how well your figures play with others. First things first, and we've got to start with the Kenner figures where it all began. But for our other movie Batman, and here we have the 1989 Keaton, Kilmer, who I'm sure you're interested in alongside this Robin, Bale, who could not possibly be more stylistically different, Batfleck, whose dead Robin was unfortunately confirmed to have been Dick Grayson, and Pattinson, who could definitely use a Robin of his very own. For another Keaton though, and here we have the Flash, which I still think would make for a good base body for Kilmer's Panther suit, but for a couple of video game options, and here we have Arkham Knight and Arkham City. For some comic style options, and here's Rebirth, 3 Jokers, the blue and gray version of Hush, whose cape hogs up as much room as Clooney's, Nightfall, Page Punchers, and for a practical anti-freeze batsuit, Endless Winter. Since Superman exists in the George Clooney universe, here we have Action Comics 1000 and Page Punchers. And then for some villain ideas, here's the 3 Jokers Criminal Joker, Arkham City Penguin, the Platinum Edition Nightfall Catwoman, but for some Batman Forever flair, and here's Classic Riddler, Arkham City Riddler, and the Dark Knight Two-Face. That said, had Schumacher made a 5th Batman movie, the Scarecrow was supposed to be the villain, so here's Arkham Knight just for an idea. Of course, with Schumacher at the helm, I think we all know it would have been probably closer to this. For a relative scale comparison, here's Batman and Robin with Pizza Spidey and the Spectacular Spider-Man, and as always, here they are with Stealth Iron Man. Of course, I'm sure you're curious about at least a few Robin head swaps. First up, and here's the red version of DC Multiverse. You'll need to get creative because the pegs don't match. In fact, I just have a bit of paper towel stuffed in there. But whatever solution you find, I think this looks really cool. Other way around, and yeah, this is pretty sweet too. The skin tones aren't a match, but otherwise there's a lot of potential. Next up, and here's Gotham Knights. If you were ever going to do a live action Nightwing, I think this is the costume. Obviously there are extra pads and panels and details, but it is pretty realistic, and it gives us a window into what a more serious version of Chris O'Donnell's Dick Grayson could have been. Here we have Titans. This one really looks like what the next stage of Chris O'Donnell's Nightwing journey could have looked like. I mean, all the muscles are sculpted on, so you could say it's part of that same design scheme. Otherwise, all we've done is lose the cape, the belt, and the red. For a possible Robin custom, and here we have Nightfall. It's interesting because as much as I don't really like this as a comic book Tim Drake, this really works for me. Design-wise, I feel like if you were going to translate this costume into live action, this would be the way to go. All you'd really have to do is repaint it and darken it up a bit. Also, for anyone who's curious, here's the black and red Tim Drake head on the Nightwing movie body. To be honest, I like this a lot more than I was expecting. And lastly, here we have Red Hood, whose left ankle is giving me a bit of trouble. I wanted to show you guys this one in case anybody out there wanted to customize a Batman Forever Robin. I think this torso is your best starting point, and that there's a lot of potential here. Obviously, head swaps are fun, but these figures are plenty fun all on their own. For playability, Batman and Robin get 1 whole point. And now it's time to break out those Bat credit cards, because there's nothing left to discuss but the price. As a Build-A-Wave, each figure goes for $24.99. Similar to the film upon which it was based, I know this wave won't be for everyone, but it's definitely for me, and if you missed out on the box set, it's a great way of adding Clooney to your collection. For price, I'm giving Batman and Robin 1 whole point for a surprising score of 5.5 out of 5. Wait a minute, I forgot to make a joke about nipples on the Batsuit. Ah well, video's ruined. If you like this video, check out one of these. Thank you so much for watching. I'll be back again real soon, but until then, play nice and have fun.